Alrighty, welcome to episode 193 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. Tesla's third generation Powerwall is now available in Western Australia following an announcement from renewable energy company Perth Solar Warehouse. Powerwall 3 can now be ordered at a cost of between $14,000 and $16,000. Tesla has opened its 100th supercharger site in Australia. This landmark achievement, which was 10 years in the making, was completed with the commissioning of the Glenelg, South Australia site. Tesla has opened its newly completed Osborne Park showroom and service centre. The greatly expanded facilities are now open and running at 419 Scarborough Beach Road. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and welcome to the program. Alrighty, if there's anyone who is new and is comfortable in doing so, please unmute and say hello. Or perhaps a little bit later. Alrighty, who would like to kick off the program with a question or a comment?
I would like to, Harold.
Yes, Norm.
Harold, we just got ourselves a refreshed Model 3. We traded in our old Model 3. And one huge missing bit of software programming is the old function where you hold the gear stalk down for 3 seconds and it goes back to the speed limit. That's a real pain that it's missing because you have to keep touching the screen and you take your eyes off the road for some period of time. I was just wondering if we could get that to Tesla in some way.
We certainly can. Have you tried, unfortunately, I don't have a Highland or more importantly, a Juniper Model Y yet. But can you press and hold the right scroll wheel and does that do the same function?
No, I've tried that. It doesn't work. When you let it go, it just turns off the cruise control and auto steer.
Right. Okay. Does anyone else who has a Highland have any different experience or any trick or a tip for Norm to do that function?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever tried that function before, even on any of my other Teslas. But I can give it a shot. But obviously, I haven't. So what's the behavior? You hold the gear shifter down.
Yeah. So if you've got a let's call it a Storks car, so an older Model 3 or a current Model Y, to get the cruise control or autopilot to go to the posted speed limit, which is what it's showing on the screen. If your current speed limit is set differently, you just press and hold down the autopilot the gear lever and all the way down, and that will then change the current speed setting to the one that the car is determined to be the local speed limit.
There you go. I never knew that.
Oh, well, so there you go. So we just learned something new. But as Norm's indicating, on the Highland, there isn't that sort of functionality.
No.
So,
but just like on the old model, the only way to do it on the Highland is to press on the speed limit that's in the red circle on the screen, which I think Norm has worked out.
yes.
The only other way is to just obviously scroll up the right scroll wheel until you get to the speed limit if you don't want to be touching the screen. But that's definitely a handy function. And it's not on the Highland. You're right, Norm.
Okay, so to be clear, on the Highland, when you do a single press, depending on how you've configured your menu in autopilot, if you do a single press of the right scroll wheel, that will either invoke autopilot or invoke traffic aware cruise control. And then if you've done that option for a double tap, you do 2 taps of the scroll wheel to do autopilot. So does a long tap of the scroll wheel do anything? Or I think, Norm, you were saying that actually turns off autopilot. Or
Yeah, it's the same as just pressing it once and turning it off.
yeah, right. Okay. No, actually, well, and to get to the first part of your question, can we raise it with Tesla? Yeah, absolutely. Because that is a useful thing to be able to do from the steering wheel, as opposed to having to use your left hand to then have to navigate to the touchscreen. So
It's
yeah,
also
we'll
much
make
safer there, Harold.
yes, yeah, indeed, absolutely.
One thing you
Okay.
could also do, Norm, to make touching the screen a little bit safer and save you having to stretch out, is to have your steering wheel either a little bit closer to the front of the car, and hence your seat a little bit closer, or maybe your seat a little bit higher, or maybe have it inclined forward a little bit more, or have the backrest forward a little bit more. So maybe just changing around the seat configuration could make it a little bit easier to reach.
I'll try that.
Alrighty, thanks for that opening question, Norm. All right, has anyone else got any questions or comments?
Yes, I've got a question.
Yes, Brad.
When you're charging, in the top right of the screen, it's got the volts and amps and things like that. What is the number 3 and sometimes number 2, etc., and a little shaded thing? What does that mean?
It tells you how many phases that it can see on the AC circuit. So if you're connected to a 3-phase supply, it'll put all 3 in a circle. Rarely you can get on a 2-phase supply. I have seen it. If you're some places in the country that only have 2 phases connected, it will happily charge off 2 phases and show you a 2 in a circle. But usually you'll either have no circle there at all because it's just charging off a single phase, or you'll have 3 in a circle.
Perfect.
So effectively it multiplies the amps by 3. So if it says 3-phase 16 amp, then you're effectively getting 48 amps spread across those 3 phases.
Yep. Thank you very much. Excellent.
No worries. All right, since we're on a roll, anyone else got any questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got the hat trick, I suppose. Just following up from a few weeks ago, I mentioned that my front half shafts were knocking again on my car. Anyway, I had it going to the Icona, the service centre, and they had a look over it. As it turned out, we went for a drive that morning with the tech on board, and it didn't knock, obviously. It's Murphy's Law.
It's true of every mechanic visit for any car, anytime ever in history.
Yeah, it's horrible that you made that law, Harold.
Yeah.
So
I think
anyway,
that
later
was
in the day, once it warmed up,
slightly.
they diagnosed it again, and it did knock for them. So they ended up changing them out. While they were doing it, they found that the front motor hadn't been readjusted correctly the previous time that they'd done it, which they reckon that may have caused additional wearing. So they adjusted it correctly this time. They didn't charge me because it's out of that warranty period, which is good of them, because they were probably at fault for not adjusting the mount, the motor mount correctly.
Yeah, and look, the problem with the old Model X is the half shafts have been a perennial problem, basically. I think my car had 2 lots of half shafts done. I think I know someone I know who's had 5 or 6 sets of half shafts changed, and regardless of how many times Tesla reviews or has different procedures, different versions of half shafts and other accoutrements, the problem just persists in the background to varying degrees and hasn't really been resolved, at least in the current Australian Model X's yet. So hopefully it'll be the last one, Damon, but it might not be.
Do you know if it's just with the long range, or is the performance the same situation? And if not, the American version, has that, like the Plaid, has that been fixed?
Don't know. The Plaid is a sufficiently, or the refreshed S's and X's, which aren't in Australia, are sufficiently different that might have been that problem might have been designed out of them. But certainly, there's no physical difference half shaft wise or drivetrain wise between the performance and non-performance X's in Australia.
Yeah, certainly for the front motor, they're the same.
Exactly, yeah. There is a difference in the rear motor for the performance, but that's not where the half shafts are in question for the Model X.
Yeah.
So there's no difference, Damon. It's just one of these things that just sort of crept up, and you don't always notice it. From memory, I would notice it if you haven't done any moderate acceleration for quite a while, and then out of the blue you moderately accelerate, then you'll notice it. But it sort of comes and goes in waves, and hence why you said that when you took them for a drive and they were in the car, that you couldn't replicate it. So it does come in waves, and sometimes it's quite subtle, and other times it's pretty brutal. Of course, Tesla have tried to mitigate it by doing things such as you can't drive your car in very high mode with the air suspension above 20 kilometers an hour, I think it is, something like that, because it's exacerbated when your suspension is set to high. And I think that's when the half shafts are more likely to sort of partly come out. Well, the splines there's less spline interaction with the actual drive unit because of the higher suspension level.
Okay. The Osborne Park, is that just a showroom, or is that a service centre as well?
No, so the new site which Tesla has moved, and I mean as of today they made it official in an email, albeit a day late, that they've moved to 419 Scarborough Beach Road. That is Perth's principal service centre, so it's the largest service centre. It's a fair bit larger than the O'Connor site, and it is also now their primary. Sorry, it is now their showroom for the northern suburbs of Perth. So Tesla have all but moved out of or vacated the Main Street, well, a corner of Main Street and Scarborough Beach Road site.
Damon, if you go to the new Osborne Park store, on the left is the service centre entrance, and if you look through there, through the window, or if the door's open, it's an absolutely massive space. It's quite incredible what they've got there now.
Okay.
That's just the centre part. Yeah.
Yeah. The O'Connor one's just down the road. That's one of the closest one anyway to me. But I thought that was a pretty large facility.
Yeah, O'Connor's big in itself.
Yeah. I find it, it's great that they've got two in Perth. That they must have enough obvious business to actually have two showroom and service centres.
Well, they've increased their footprint from just the original Osborne Park store and service centre and showroom to the O'Connor and the new Osborne Park site by, I think we calculated it was almost tenfold. Or if not more. It's absolutely fantastic.
Remember the old days of the Nedlands outlet?
Well, and even before that, there was just a guy ready to hop on a plane to come and service your car from Sydney. So,
yeah, okay.
The service centre. This is just looking through the front window, so you can basically see there's a lot of floor space, and it's a rather large site, and they've got a lot of storage room for parts that go around to the back, and there's actually a sizable, you can't really see it there, but there's actually a sizable area in the back as well. So that's the sort of part of
the left, what you can't see from that photo as well. There's quite a bit of area to the left there too.
That's right. They had about half a dozen cars sort of angle parked, that were probably waiting to be serviced or had been finished being serviced. And if you contrast that with I'll just get the previous service center. That's this one here, which the only sign was a tiny Tesla sign and a number that said 44 Government Road.
Yeah.
So
Hey, I recognise that car at the front. Where'd you get that photo from?
I got it from my phone, Pete, and because I was there, and there was one single hoist, which you can't. Well, yeah, you can just barely see there. So that was a pretty
And a really
ordinary
nice
sight.
dog.
And a Rottweiler. Yeah, that's right.
So there's as far as I'm aware, after they moved out, a tinting car tint mob moved in there. They actually tinted my front windows on the Model X after Tesla moved out of there. I'm not sure if they're still there, but they did a really good job.
Yeah, right. Excellent. So basically they've gone from, that sort of pretty abominable site to basically this, and that is a rather great step up. And the showroom is, oh, sorry, let me just fix something here. I'll just fix.
And that's one of only 2 showrooms.
Yes.
Sorry, one of only.
So, and the showroom is expected to house the Cybertruck in the next in the upcoming days, the Osborne Park site. So they're going to share the loving around of the Cybertruck. Hopefully sometime next week for a little while. Alrighty, we got any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I picking up on the news. I've been trying to get a Powerwall 3 for some time now, and although there's been plenty of announcements, I'm actually at the risk of conflicting with the news. I'm not at all convinced that Powerwalls are available in Western Australia in any meaningful way. My understanding from talking to my installer is they're not currently approved by Western Power.
Awesome. That wouldn't surprise me.
And when they are approved, the interim approval will probably force them to limit the internal inverter to 5 kilowatts.
Yes, because it's unless you're in a single phase house.
No, even in a single phase house, because
really?
because you have the 5 kilowatt export limit, they won't allow you the internal inverter on the Powerwall to generate more. It's because of a feature of the wording of the current, as I understand it, Western Power rules. So Tesla are going to need to come out with a special software patch for Western Australian ones that limit the output to 5 kilowatts, even for supplying your house when you're off grid.
So in other words, if your house consumes more than 5 kilowatts internally,
you have to pull from the grid.
And that just shows the inanity of Western Power's regulations, which the Energy Minister, Mr. Whitby, ought to encourage Western Power to change and bring itself into the 21st century where inverters are instantaneous. The Powerwall would have no issue supplying the entirety of the house and not have even an electron leak into the grid if it didn't want to.
So at the moment for my greenfield site, I'm looking at having to install a 5 kilowatt single phase inverter, which I will throw away at some point when my Powerwall arrives.
And again, that's great for responsible use of.
Because the other fun thing about the Western Power rules is for another greenfields build, you can't use an inverter that's been previously commissioned on the network anywhere. So I couldn't actually take that inverter and put it in a new install at another site either.
So it couldn't be reset to anyway. Good job, government. Hence why I think Elon Musk has often advocated that rules and regulations ought to have an automatic sunset clause so that if they're not actively re-engaged with or revalidated, automatically evaporate, because
Yeah.
in this day and age it causes nothing but problems. So yeah,
It's being
I'll keep you up to date.
local.
I'm trying to get one before summer.
yeah, awesome. I mean, there are other alternatives, Ken, that are a lot cheaper, to be honest, but
Yeah, I want
that's
to have it all linked into the ecosystem so that, you know,
Yeah.
Charge on Solar works and everything else works. It's just in one app, you know.
yeah, true.
Trust me, I know I've hand rolled other systems in the past, and I have no excitement to do that again. I'm happy to, because I think the price performance is pretty good, frankly, for the Powerwall 3.
It's certainly got plenty of solar inputs. I think it's got 6 MPPT inputs, which is pretty good if you've got a fractured roof, and you can have lots of little strings if you've got partial shading and things like that. So yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, the house that I'm putting it on doesn't have any north-facing roof gable at all, so it's going to be an east-west job. So it's very important to be able to split that up to get maximum yield. So it'll be great.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, come on, Western Power, just and AEMO and EPWA. Please, EPWA, modernise WA's power regulations, because inverters are far smarter than you give them credit for. And really, there should be no limit to the amount of solar you can have on a roof, provided you've matched it with an adequate amount of battery storage, and also provided, you know, they can set rules if they want. They can say zero net export for any new installations, and that's totally okay. Because if you put enough panels and enough battery storage, most houses, even with EVs, for at least 9 months of the year can be entirely self-sufficient and not even represent any load to the system. Or
Yeah. Yep.
if need be, you know, encourage inverters such as the Powerwall, which Tesla's already proven in South Australia, to participate in virtual power plants. Suck up the solar when needed, you know, during the daytime, and chuck it out to the grid at, you know, 7 o'clock at night, or 5:30, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, and, you know, make some money out of it and stabilize the grid. Cool.
I've got two more comments.
Yes,
One
no.
was carrying on with this one that you're talking about. What's the logic in Western Power approving your inverter and then you can't export, or it's not economical to export? So what is their approval worth? It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, their presumption is they basically count up the total. They presume that your inverter, say it's a 5 kilowatt inverter, because it exists on your house, in theory, if that inverter turned off, then suddenly 5 kilowatts could be presented as an instantaneous load to the system. So that's sort of part of the reasoning why they don't permit any more than a 5 kilowatts per phase, basically, sort of.
But that reason doesn't, if I can just interrupt for a second, that reasoning doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but that wasn't
because
the
if
question,
you,
Pete. But Pete, the question wasn't whether it made sense or not. It was, you know, what is Horizon, what is Western Power doing? So none of it makes sense. We already know that in this day and age of modern inverters, solar systems, battery storage. But the problem is the way the rules are written. They are written in such a way as the strict presumption is, if there are inverters, they are then presumed to if they turn off or turn on, for that matter, to either instantaneously provide an unexpected 5 kilowatt or whatever the limit is load, or generation in an uncontrolled fashion. And that's what their presumption is. We know it's incorrect, but that's the way the rules have been written, so that they actually have like a workflow of, you count up all the inverters. So you could have, you know, 4 Powerwalls, because that's what Tesla's, they limit. The Powerwall 3 can be 4 of them can be connected in parallel to increase the overall capacity.
Yep.
Even though they all work in concert and they can work in a zero net export setup, the presumption by Western Power is you have to add up the inverter capacities of all 4 Powerwalls, which is in that case 20 kilowatts. But in fact, the peak output of a Powerwall 3, I think is it 12 kilowatts or 11 kilowatts. So if you multiply 11 by 4, that's 44 kilowatts of potential generation. So then under Western Power's rules, they'll say you are not permitted to have 44 kilowatts of generation or abatement, because in theory, your house could then possibly be sucking up 44 kilowatts of capacity that your Powerwalls are providing the house. And if they suddenly fail or reset or whatever, then your house will represent a shadow or an instantaneous load of 44 kilowatts that violates our regulations, blah, blah, blah. And then they talk about base points and that sort of stuff.
I can buy a few welders and I can create 44 kilowatts of instantaneous load on the network without any approvals, without Western Power having anything to say about it.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You can buy them, but your house would not be permitted to have 44 kilowatts of three-phase outlets, because an electrician has to do a load assessment of your house, and in part of the load assessment is what proportion of on time, what's the duty cycle of those loads, and a licensed electrician would not be permitted to install 44 kilowatts of three-phase outlets hooked up to, like your main switch. The thing is, your main switch would pop anyway, and your boundary fuses would also pop, because they're only designed. The presumed capacity of a three-phase in Perth is 20 kilowatts.
Okay, let's talk about the 5 kilowatts. So you can't go more than 5 kilowatts. So I can easily do
without permission.
5 kilowatts is not much. I can buy a ball pump that uses 13 kilowatts. I can get an air conditioner that uses 15 kilowatts. And without any approvals, I can have that installed. The electrician can install it, and that represents a way more than a 5 kilowatt instantaneous load.
Yep. So a single phase house in Perth, in Western Australia, on the Swiss, is apportioned 15 kilowatts of capacity total, 63 amps single phase, and your boundary fuse would probably be, I don't know, 80 amps at the boundary. So if you turned on all those things, you would pop your boundary fuse, and then Western Power would ask you to explain what happened.
What I'm saying is you can go over 5 kilowatts without even getting anywhere near the capacity of your fuse, without any approvals, and instantaneous load, without Western Power or anyone knowing about it, without me having to speak to anyone about it. But as soon as you want to do the exact same thing with solar or with a battery, all of a sudden that requires approvals, and that may not be approved. Well, it won't be approved.
Yes. And hence, it would be a great thing for Energy Minister Whitby to commit to reviewing those regulations with a view of making the entire system more robust and resilient, which is what reviewing the regulations could do. And like I said, me personally, this is only my personal opinion, I think if anyone wants to add solar today to a house, whether it's more or a greenfield site, the answer should be yes, you can, but you must not export any to the grid unless the grid says so, and you must have battery storage. And then just go for it and have as much battery storage and solar as you like. As long as you meet those two rules, have battery storage and don't export to the grid unless the grid says so.
Absolutely.
But again, this is not, as we speak tonight, this is not the regulations in WA. And until they are changed, if and until they're changed, we're at the old system, which is you need to seek permission for every connection. And yes, you can. Or you can go off grid.
You can go off grid.
Yep.
Which is
sorry, go ahead.
No, go Norm.
So the other comment I had was when I picked up the refresh Model 3 from O'Connor, the floor is so shiny that it sounded like the wheels were touching somewhere, on the guards or something. I had to actually get out of the car and look underneath to see that everything was clear. It's just the squeaking of the tires on the shiny surface was scary.
Yeah, the O'Connor Delivery Centre is really, it's a great site. It really is. And obviously, a few weeks ago, a lot of us were at which is something I don't think we had an Ask Us Anything. We're not a recorded one since then, actually. So that was an amazing a day that we had. That was the TOCWA exclusive open day at O'Connor, and of course, one great thing that everyone who went there saw was the Cybertruck itself, which was also a great thing. But yeah, it is Tesla has a very good layout as far as proper delivery centers, proper showrooms, and proper service centers where you have almost glass-like shine on the floors. Everything's nice and white and light and bright, and yeah, it really is a great setup. And yeah, I mean, look, Norm, I dare say that won't be the last Tesla that will be delivered to your family. So, I've always said my best Tesla is my next one, and I'm certainly looking forward to a Juniper Model Y sometime next year, and a Cybertruck whenever, or possibly the Tesla Semi, which that was another bit of good news too. Was at the IAA, I think it was in Europe, Tesla had their Semi there, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he's the head of the
Dan Priestley.
Yes, he actually had a great presentation. I think it ran for about 13 minutes, and it was basically as good as any Apple presentation that you'd ever see. And one of the great things he actually said, which was a bit of actual big news, was rest assured that he said that what we have on display here is just one of the variants for freight transportation, and that they are looking at all the sectors for freight. So that basically implies things like, vans, the small, 3 or 4 ton trucks, basically, the B class sort of trucks, delivery trucks, and obviously the Tesla Semi itself. So that's really good news on that front. And let's just hope that they have, I don't know if Australia's going to have a trucking conference or whatever, but let's hope Tesla brings the Semi to Australia sometime soon. But perhaps the Cybertruck first. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments?
Any rumor about FSD, the version in America that when it comes to Australia?
Next year.
Q1 or Q2 next year.
Yeah.
Elon said. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Elon did say that they want to have FSD beta. They will be applying to have FSD beta in all foreign jurisdictions, and that would obviously also include Australia. In fact, something that did pop up through some Australian regulatory applications was an Easter egg about, or some information about, Tesla's impending robotaxi. And that was in an Australian application. They made an application to have the front seats of a car be able to swivel backwards to face the back seats. So Tesla definitely have stated that they will introduce FSD supervised in all jurisdictions that will approve it, and they're actively seeking approval. So yeah, as Pete sort of alluded to, hopefully Q1 or Q2 next year, which would be pretty exciting and very interesting actually, especially in the outback where you see lots of kangaroos, cows, dingoes, and other things, and see how FSD supervised handles all of that.
Just thinking about the swiveling chair, physically, I don't see how it can do it without losing the center console.
Well, that's the point. It's a different form factor.
probably Yeah, that would probably be correct. Unless it can do some fancy, it sort of temporarily angles sort of at a 45-degree angle backwards and swivels so it would miss the yeah, you're right. There's probably no center console.
Or the center console, when you spin the seat, may just sort of go that way. Sorry, not the center console, the screen, rather than being vertical, it might just go horizontal, or it might just rise, or it might just, yeah, who knows?
Yeah, that's a screen, but the actual center console, so where you've got your where you rest your left, if you're the driver, where you rest your left elbow, that may disappear, or it may change its nature somehow. Yeah,
Because robo-taxi is like a taxi, so it'll be a different setup, a different form factor sort of thing. It's not your car. It's a different vehicle altogether. So that's what it'll be. Yeah, have you been in like the little one that the RAC had down at South Perth? It'll probably be that sort of form factor. Yeah, that's what I'm sort of thinking it'll be.
It'll be much smaller than that, though.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. I mean, who knows? We'll know in what, 15, 16 days?
Yeah, 2 weeks and a day. So
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Actually, sorry, it'll be 2 weeks and 2 days, because obviously it's Thursday, the 10th of October, US time, but that'll be Friday, the 11th of October, our time, Friday morning.
Yep. I'll be sick on that day.
So it'll be interesting. No, you're doing research, Paul. You're researching.
Yeah, actually, it is my job, so I can get it. I can do that. Yeah.
That's right. And a shout out to your boss who is watching this recording once one of your colleagues dobs you in. And no, I'm not gonna edit it because I can't be bothered. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And obviously the stock analysts, the prediction is that Wall Street won't like it because they will be disappointed that they're not producing them tomorrow, and they're not producing 1 million of them next week, and all that sort of stuff. So it will be very interesting to see what happens.
After the Tesla shareholder.
Yes.
I had a bit of a giggle about a week or so back. I saw a video of the Waymo full self-driving cars. They're all going into one particular parking lot and getting stuck, honking their horns at each other. And people are not getting their sleep because it's happening at 3 o'clock in the morning. But this car park is full of hundreds of Waymo cars all getting locked in its own gridlock.
Yeah, the thing is, as has been ventilated on many YouTube channels, Tesla's lead is unassailable. It's all about data. It's all about it's just about the volume of real world data that you can process and put into your training compute networks. And as Elon Musk has warned in the past, if you're relying on high definition maps, data maps and LiDAR and all those sort of things, and brittle programming, it's just not a general solution. And there's only one company that's got the data, and that's Tesla. No other car manufacturer, none of the legacy ones have got a shadow of all that data, and they're not going to, because they don't have all the cameras, and they don't have the internet connectivity, and they don't have the 100,000 H100 clusters that in itself costs $3 billion just in the compute. So Tesla's just so far in front. It's just almost unfair. But that's just the way it is. Alrighty, we got any other questions or comments?
Oh, did you see about Volkswagen closing factories and stuff like that? And I heard today about Mercedes is the same. So
it's probably the start of
Stellantis,
a multi-year, I was going to say gentle, but maybe it won't be so gentle, decline as all the legacy engine plants and car plants have to close because it's just not economically viable to continue producing that product from a decreasing number of those products from a large base of plant and equipment. It'll just have to be methodically decommissioned, and that's going to cause a lot of pain, a hell of a lot of pain. And I guess the sooner they do that, the longer it's going to take for them to finally go broke, because that's what most of them will do. And that's just, it's like that saying that gravity is a myth, the earth just sucks. You just cannot defy that gravity, that weight of economic reality. When you have a disruption in the economy. You know, I was talking to someone about a week and a half ago about you know, what we're seeing with vehicles, from a progression from fossil fueled vehicles to electric vehicles, is the same as we experienced with mobile phones being Nokia, the masters of the universe, and then a small fruit company, a burnt out PC producing fruit company coming out with a smartphone. And you know, there were many Nokia plants that were shut because people just didn't want those old phones anymore, because there was a new paradigm, and that's what's going to happen to vehicles. And that's sometimes where the first move, not first mover, the later movers, so the Johnny come latelys actually have a better time, because they start with a greenfield site and a vehicle that's designed from the ground up to be electric, not one that's been retrofitted, you know, such as what a lot of the legacy manufacturers have been doing. And it's just one of those things. Now, we also mentioned the supercharger. So Australia's got its 100th supercharger site at Glenelg. Well, something that we managed to actually see in the wild, which was very fortunate to do with superchargers, was a prefabricated supercharger setup. This is a 4-stall. They are version 4 stalls, but a version 3 power box. And this was basically prefabricated and installed at Port Augusta in South Australia. So basically what you have is a concrete pad that is put down first with conduits, and then you simply just place the prefabricated steel structure with the power box, and then this actual switchboard is also then subsequently placed onto the site. And that basically saves about half a week's worth of labor for 3 people on installs. So it makes the installation dramatically cheaper. So hopefully we'll see some of these being installed in Western Australia sometime soon, which is pretty cool. So incidentally, that was the second site to be done with that method. The first one was the day before at Border Town, which is on the Victoria, South Australia border. So like I said, hopefully we'll see some of those in Western Australia, which we do know that obviously it's not Lehman, it's the other one.
Greenhead.
Greenhead. We know Greenhead has been given the go-ahead by the Council of, is it the Shire of Cataby? Something like that. So that's pretty cool. And there are obviously other sites that Tesla are pressing on with. So hopefully we'll see that come to a site near us sometime soon. Oh, and by the way, the installation was so simple that basically this was actually installed off the back of a HIAB. So it's basically self-contained. This crane operator basically put it down. So it's actually a very rapid method of deploying. In fact, as a Tesla executive coined it, it's basically a drop and go system. You literally drop it and you go. hook it up to power, and that's it.
Cool.
Alrighty. Any other questions or comments?
I've got a question, but only if no one else has one.
Yeah, go, Pete.
Tell us about your trip, Harold.
Oh. Well, because I'm an idiot, I basically drove a caravan in a figure eight around Australia, taking about 17,200 kilometers approximately. And it sort of partly reprised my first lap around Australia on my Model X in that it took 19 days. So obviously not a very hot lap, but it was, yeah, it was, I think I averaged 909 kilometers a day. I think there's 3 words to describe it, and there's like it's the title of an old classic Western movie, and that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good,
Before you go on, let me just interrupt because you missed out one critical detail for those that didn't know about your lap. You were doing that while towing a caravan.
oh yes, sorry, yes, I thought, oh, yeah, I thought I mentioned caravan. Yeah, so it was towing a caravan. So I'll just try and whip out a photo of that setup. Although it's been in several posts. Let's have a look. So basically, it's a Jayco Penguin pop top caravan that weighs about 1.4 tons ish. It has, and I have got a quick spec sheet here. It's basically got a few input bits of power. It's got 1 by 240 15 amps. So that's a caravan, standard caravan input. Then it's also got a mixture of either 15 amps 240 volt single phase, or 32 amp 3-phase, or effectively like a type 2 input like your car has that can pull in up to 22 kilowatts or 32 amps 3-phase. If the caravan's in off-grid mode, so in other words, I'm in the middle of nowhere and I need to charge the car, I can charge it at 15 kilowatts using a CTEC DC charger. If I'm on grid with, say, like a 32 amp 3-phase input, the maximum charge rate I can do is 30 kilowatts. The onboard battery storage is 30 kilowatt hours, and the rooftop has got a nameplate capacity of about 1300 watts. So it sort of makes it pretty mean. And I've taken all the gas out, so I've got a microwave oven, and I will have induction cooktops and whatever later on, and it's got a reverse cycle aircon. But I mean, the biggest job for the caravan, apart from being a dead weight to the car, was to be able to augment charging of the car in the middle of nowhere, or if you're at a 3-phase outlet, or even a couple of caravan socket outlets. Now, when I mentioned the title of the trip, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good represents properly working, reliable, fast DC chargers. And when they're good, they're very good. So there is nothing better than turning up to a fast DC charger, plugging in. Look, if it's a supercharger, it's obviously the best because you literally plug it in and it just works. Although actually I was at one site where one bank of 4 weren't working, and thankfully I checked because I did plug and walk away. So you should really check, but that's the best. Then still very good is any other type of fast DC charger where you might have to use an app or a card that just works and works reliably. So you can kind of walk away or have a power nap and know that in 30 minutes, 40, 50 minutes time, your car will be charged. The bad...
Would you class most of the WA EV network Cam Power chargers in that?
Generally,
in that category?
Yes, the Kempower chargers are good. They are the good. So they are basically reliable, except for the ones that were vandalized. And I guess that becomes that gets into the, well, let's go. So the good is fast DC chargers, they work properly. The bad are AC chargers, because obviously when you're towing a caravan, you're basically using almost twice the energy that you normally would. So you get between 50% and about 60% of the normal range. So you're doing a lot of charging. So in fact, the average for the 17,000 kilometers, my consumption was 295 watt hours per kilometer. And actually that was understated because there were quite a few gaps where I had to achieve better than 295 watt hours per kilometer just to make it. So then I had to slow down a lot to make some of these gaps. So you use a lot of energy, and it means you've got to basically, when you're doing 200 kilometer gaps, you've got to fully charge the car and fully deplete it. Now the bad is AC charging, because it's slow, it takes a long time, it's hot, it's laborious. I've got all the toys. I can turn 22 kilowatts from a shore power into 30 kilowatts by drawing on the internal batteries while they're charged, and I've got all the tricks in the book. And basically, when you're doing a lot of charging remotely during the day, the bad part are the places that don't have fast DC chargers, and that you've got to basically resort to three-phase charging, or even worse, sometimes single-phase charging at places such as Barclay Homestead, which is sort of in the centre of Australia, or the upper centre, and is a real black hole as far as EV chargers go. So we got the good and the bad. Then we get to the ugly. And what the ugly is if you get to say a fast DC charger site, and this is what gets to the wrongly named range anxiety. You don't need to have any range anxiety whatsoever. Your car knows and will tell you how far it can go. And you would literally have to be at leave of your senses to embark on a trip where you knew your car wouldn't make it, because that's just being silly. So there is no such thing as range anxiety. But what there really is, and sadly still is reliability anxiety, or you just don't quite know what you're going to get to when you get there, what you're going to find when you get there. So, and there is nothing worse than getting to a site, and I'll show a couple of examples in PlugShare. And one notable site is Fitzroy Crossing and Halls Creek. And unfortunately, this is a big vulnerability of any fast DC chargers in any remote community areas, sadly. So I'll just bring this up, and that's the screen. And there's an example right there. So this is a Kempower unit whose screen has been so badly damaged that the actual charger is not functional. And nor is the ChargeMate, the AC unit. And actually, this was a classic. This is part of the classic ugliness. So if you can't, it would normally take about 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes to get 200 kilometers of range in a Tesla at a Kempower site. If you can't use that Kempower or that fast DC charger, and all you have to resort to is a 10 amp 240 volt outlet GPO, then that 20 minutes will turn into 20 hours. And if you're on a road trip or on a holiday, that fundamentally breaks the enjoyment of that holiday. And that becomes the ugly part. On the other hand, if you've got some sort of alternative charging, and in Halls Creek, there sort of was, but it wasn't fantastic. But you can have consequences that go down and ripple downwards. And that was whereby I was charging at a business where I charged several times previously, and as a process, part of that of charging legitimately at that place, one of the boundary fuses popped. Now, it was probably because it was undersized, because of vandalism in that area. There was a new installation put in, and anyway, for a lot of complex reasons, presumably the boundary fuse wasn't, the one that was in there wasn't high enough rated. But the consequences of that was there were some freezer units that were offline, and I don't even know how long they were offline for. I don't dare want to find out. So the ugly part is not only does it inconvenience the EV driver, but it can actually dramatically inconvenience others as a ripple effect. And that kind of is quite distressing. You know, I was quite sort of upset about it because, you know, and frustrated that you get this consequential damage that goes down the line and just gives everyone a bad taste, you know, who was involved with it. So the good, fast DC chargers working. The bad, places where there are no fast DC chargers, you've only got AC, but you know about it. But the ugly is when you get to a site that is unreliable. You know, another one, and I don't want to bash the NRMA, but unfortunately, well, in fact, I've mentioned it before. I went to Three Ways Roadhouse, and I mean, that was an emotional experience because, again, that was one of those classic ones where I plugged into the 180 kilowatt ABB charger, fast DC charger at Three Ways on grid power, and I literally had a sleep for 50 minutes because I turned up empty and I knew I had to leave full, and I knew I plugged in, set it up, went to sleep, woke up, and sure enough, the car was 5 minutes from being fully charged. Perfect site, well done NRMA. I then get to the Old Dundas site, which is a classic site, first one they've done off grid, and it's a disaster. You know, the diesel generator started within a couple of minutes, made a whole lot of racket, pumped out a lot of smoke, worked appallingly, produced less power than my caravan could from the three-phase outlet at the hotel around the corner. Then get to Nullarbor Roadhouse, where this time there is actually a diesel generator, a much bigger one that is capable of doing the job properly. Sure enough, after putting less than half into my car, it went down to 10 kilowatts, again, which is the third of the capacity of my caravan setup. Really disappointing. You know, I spoke to the maintenance guy at Nullarbor Roadhouse. His name's Andrew, top bloke. He's quite tenacious. He's going to hopefully get to the bottom of it and make the NRMA fix this site, because that's something that they didn't seem to be particularly interested in doing. So, you know, that's the ugly bits where you've got government funded sites that just aren't being either properly built in the first place or properly maintained or properly hardened against, you know, things like vandalism. And just to that end, I'll show a
To just put what you just said into perspective. So with your charger, your CTEC charger, which probably costs about $2,000 or $3,000 now, you were able to get, was it 20 kilowatts?
30.
30
So-
kilowatts versus a $333,000, and this is Texpo's money, charger that was able to get you what, 3 kilowatts? 3.5?
It went down to 10. If it was two cars, it was 4.5. On a previous trip, I'd seen 4.5 kilowatts. So I've actually got the video of the Nullarbor Roadhouse site. 2 seconds. And basically that caravan, the inverters, battery storage and all that, the stuff that actually does the work, that cost a total of about $20,000. And then you add the CTEC unit to it, which is, yeah, you're right, Pete. You can basically get those units now for about $3,000 or $4,000. So let's call it for 25 grand, sitting in a caravan. And in 2 seconds, I'll have this video. Yeah. So this is what the NRMA charger was putting out. It had delivered 34 kilowatt hours. So that's roughly half the battery capacity, and then went down to 10 kilowatts. And you can see it was in the morning and a little bit cloudy. This is what 30 kilowatts. You can see the caravan there. So basically it's got 22 kilowatts shore power coming in. There's batteries in the back, inverters, and then this is the CTEC unit basically pumping out. You can see the shore power coming in there next to the laundry, pumping out 30 kilowatts. So that's a $25,000 bit of equipment in a $28,000 caravan, portable unit with 22 kilowatts of shore power, which every roadhouse has, was outperforming, like Pete said, a $500,000 site to which the federal government has put in $250,000 of funding, of untied funding, which is specifically outrageous. So there's the ugly side. But yeah, apart from that, it was a great journey. Interesting. One of the big points it proved was, if you are caravanning, which many people want to do with their cars, because let's face it, EV owners are no different in general to all car owners. And there's a significant subset of them that do want to tow caravans and trailers and other things. And the only way you can really do it well is if you have 100-kilometer gaps between charging locations. Because when you're using twice the power, if you think about it, I often had to leave a charging location totally full and arrive totally empty. And I would titrate down to the 1 kilometer or 0 kilometers. And I'd have to charge for the whole hour to go all the way to absolute full, because the gaps were over 150 kilometers, 200 kilometers. The biggest one was 260 something kilometers. And a lot of that I had to do at 75 k's an hour just to get the efficiency, or catch a semi-trailer, and sometimes even that didn't work. I had to let them go. But if you've got gaps of 100 kilometers, then I could afford to burn something like 600 watt hours per kilometer, which is like luxurious. So you can do the full 100k speed limit, which, by the way, that only applies in WA. All the other states and territories, for normal caravans, you can do the speed limit. So in the Northern Territory, that's 130, which is pretty good fun. And in the other states, it's either 100 or 110. You basically go with all the other traffic. So with 100 kilometer intervals, you can then caravan around and do trailering and other things, just like with the same sort of convenience as you can with a normal EV on 200k gaps. So that was one of the points of this ridiculous venture. But yeah, anyway, there you go.
The tires as well.
Sorry, Pete. Oh, yes. One of the problems that you can come across, and I'd actually had Tesla tire problems on my previous Figure 8, whereby I'd torn one to shreds, at 1:45, 100k south of Alice Springs. And let me see if I can get the post. But unfortunately, on the caravan I've got, it seems a lot of OEM caravan makers use quite cheap tires. And as a consequence of that, I was 100 and something k south of Tennant Creek, and I basically heard a and I thought, oh, what the hell was that? And I looked in the TPMS for the caravan, and the pressures were fine. They were both tires were inflated, but unfortunately the tread had literally flown off the left hand wheel or tire on the caravan, so I had to change it. And here we go.
So to be clear, it wasn't a result of a tyre puncture. It basically
yes,
de-treaded
that
itself.
delaminated.
It was
That
still
tread, that's right. So that tread basically flew off, and that is still an inflated tire. So the tire and that tire had done. That's its other side. That, and you can see these tires had only done about 6,000 kilometers from new, and that's what happened to the left-hand one. And then, incidentally, about 100 k's down the road, and thankfully I've got TPMS. I saw that this tire pressure was lower, and you get that sinking feeling, and I'm going, I know I've got a leak, and I didn't have a spare because my spare was basically already on the van. And I guess you could say that I had half a spare, because in desperation, I could drive this while it was still inflated, maybe at 60 k's an hour until it eventually failed, or I just have to unhitch the caravan. But anyway, when I saw the TPMS, basically I then had to put in a unvulcanized slug, because just this side of the tread had a cut in it. And which is a big note, always bring a tire repair kit, because you just never know when you might need it. And I was ready, because I did see the split, I could see the hiss. I was ready to jam as many of those slugs in there as it was needed to fix the problem and get me going. Fortunately, I got to Cooper Pedy and changed them for quality tires, which, by the way, only cost me $180 each. And they were quality Bridgestone, I think they call them Cat something tires. And incidentally, on the last leg of my return leg out of Kalgoorlie, I think it was out of Southern Cross, I saw a caravan on the side of the road that had a disintegrated tire. And I wondered if that's one of these cheaper OEM tires. So, yeah, thanks, Pete. That was a tire adventure.
Just a side thought. Have you thought about trying to improve the drag coefficient or the aerodynamics of your pop top?
Yes and no. I'm inherently lazy, and I did put a lot of work into the battery storage and all that sort of stuff. I know Shane Parker put a lot of work into his pop top, especially to the underneath, and has basically got a perfectly flat underneath portion on his caravan. I sort of didn't bother to do that. Yeah, it's something I could do, but I won't get around to it until I've got another trip coming up in about 3 weeks' time or so, and I won't have time to do it. But
It sounds like you got 3 weeks up your sleeve.
Yeah, but so many other things to do. So yeah, look, you certainly can make it slipperier, but again, if you just have fast DC charges every 100 k's, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. That's the trick. The same as, if you're driving, whether it's a Tesla or a Kia or whatever it is, if you've got fast DC charging everywhere, then you don't have to worry about efficiency. You don't have to worry about, what you're doing with your car or what's in your car or what's outside your car. You just drive it. You don't have to worry about range, because it just doesn't matter. On the Eastern Seaboard, I never looked at my range. I never did my proper calculations. I didn't analyze the CAN bus. I just, as Bjorn Nyland would say, just hammered it and, just enjoyed the drive. But when you're in long gaps, that's when everything changes.
Harold,
From
Ola,
on your leg from Camberwell to Barclay, that pure coincidence you ran into John on that leg?
Oh, yes. So let me just scroll back up into the timeline. And it's sort of interesting because we sort of thought we might do that. And it was actually just west of Barclay Homestead, near Rankin, I think it is. And I'm just scrolling up to get the video
I
because
thought it was east of Barclay. It was west of Barclay, was it?
sorry, east. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, east of Barclay, west of Camberwell. And I had to actually take that easy, although I was fortunate enough to have a tailwind. So what I did was I'm just driving down the road, minding my own business, and I get to a parking bay.
Starlink had nothing to do with this.
No. So then I get effectively in-person driveways, full driveway service. And what it was
It was like a Formula One tyre replacement.
so you can see there are, and actually what's really cool is there's a caravan that's charging a truck, which is carrying a charger, which is charging the car, which is towing the caravan. So if that's not a perpetual motion machine, I don't know what is. So effectively we were charging each other, and that's pretty cool. And I think we've got a couple of photos. There's John. And no, that wasn't a previous EV that John had charged and then burnt up in smoke. That was something. And then there's Jim on his FPV drone, Jim Thompson, who was helping out John, coincidentally driving around Australia in the first electric truck to do so. So yeah, there you go. So that was pretty cool to see John and Jim in the Hyundai Mighty EV truck east of Barclay Homestead.
So a couple of firsts here and a few records. So second caravan to complete a lap around Australia. The first one to do a number 8 configuration. I mean, obviously John's going to be the first truck to complete the full lap around Australia, the first EV only, a PEV, a pure electric truck with no internal combustion engine. Am I missing anything?
Fastest figure 8 with the caravan.
Fastest, well, it was the first, so it had to be the fastest.
The most number of laps undertaken by an idiot. Being 6.
So that was your 6th full lap, and probably your 7th, 8th, if we count the variety, the first variety.
No. So proper lap. So proper lap is a 6th proper lap. There'll be a 7th next month, and yeah, whatever.
Don't forget, it wasn't that far off a proper lap. I know you guys did go around Australia, but you still did about 12,000 kilometres.
No, 10,000 something.
Right.
Yeah, a bit over 10,000 Ks. Now, sorry, was it Perko? I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to ask about the controller on your caravan. Like, how do you manage to talk Type 2?
Oh, okay. So I've basically made up a module that effectively simulates an EV, which is actually a very simple bit of circuitry. So in effect, the J1772 standard, which is the basis of the Type 2 AC standard, is super duper simple. For an EVSE, or let's call it a charger, for the external equipment to start providing power, the circuitry is very basic. It's just a couple of resistors and a diode actually, and a couple of switches. So I don't think I've got a great photo of the side. I sort of do, but it's not handy. But yeah, effectively, when you plug the Type 2 inlet in to a proper EVSE, the caravan circuitry will then basically quite quickly say, right, give me power, please, and then it just feeds the AC power to the power bus of the caravan, which incidentally contains 3 Victron multi-RS solar inverters, and each one of them can put out 5 kilowatts, hence my 15 kilowatt off-grid limit. But they can also pass through 50 amps each, so hence I can basically easily put 30 kilowatts into the car if I've got shore power. But yeah, so basically the Type 2 inlet, it's a proper inlet, and it works like I said, just like an EV, and it even has a push button, illuminated push button on the side, where I can press that to tell the charger to stop supplying power, so I don't have to rupture power, by disconnecting it with a socket. It actually disconnects at the charger end. And like I said, that was just intended to have multiple sources of input power. And I guess one of the things is, even though, Shane Parker and Sarah White and I, so Shane and Sarah as a couple have done a caravan lap, and I've also done one. That's not to say that at the moment it's practical to do the same thing without highly modified caravans and various arrangements as we speak today, because you've got gaps which necessitate long, slow drives, and you just don't have the fast DC chargers where they all need to be yet. So just because it can be done doesn't necessarily mean it should be done routinely at this stage. We're still in that infancy sort of stage. Just like back in 2018 when I was, and this is ridiculous, it's ridiculous in my mind, I was only the 6th person in 2018 to drive an EV around Australia, which just sounds ridiculous. Even up to, say, a year or two ago, it really wasn't particularly practical to do this. It was adventurous to do it, and Pete and I did it with the new Model Ys, standard range Model Ys, and that was pretty cool. And coincidentally, we met within a couple of 100 kilometres of where I met John. So Pete and I met at Barclay Homestead. It was still an adventurous thing to do. Now it's not quite routine, but coincidentally, when I was at the end of my lap, at that time, there were at least 10 vehicles simultaneously going around Australia a few days ago. I think it might still be 10 actually, because it might have touched 11. So I think now it might be 10, or maybe it's gone to 9. But of that order, within a few days ago, there were between 10 and 11 different vehicles simultaneously undertaking a lap, which, like I said, back in 2018, there weren't even 10 in all of history that had done it. So caravans aren't quite ready yet. You do need more chargers. You need reliable chargers. And then, yes, and you also need some more choice of cars as well, vehicles that can tow. Because, in Tesla, all you've got at the moment is the Model Y as a standard equipment. Model 3 is non-standard or off-label. Once you've got the Cybertruck and other things, yeah, it's going to be fantastic. But I used every single trick in the book. I used every adapter known to man and some adapters not known to man. And even with that, with all of those gadgets, in some places it was still a bit of a chore. There's a place which is quite annoying and that's on PlugShare, and that's at Glendambo, whereby the RAA have got, and they're not ideal. They're single phase 7 kilowatt chargers, but if you look at the location, it's an old Caltex petrol station, which apparently was bought by the proprietor who owns the BP or whatever it is down the road, and then closed. But in the process of closing it, they've put a cyclone fence basically capturing the RAA 3 chargers and that phone booth, and no one can use that site. So again, that's another part of the ugly part, which is, the government has co-funded charging infrastructure, which has now been held hostage. And there's a message from the RAA that basically says they're temporarily unavailable while new land rights are negotiated. So, and we appreciate your patience. Well, the thing is, that patience means rather than charging in a few hours, you've got to go to a caravan park and charge overnight. And even then, you can only really do that because Pimba, which is a fast DC location down the road, is only 100 k's down the road. So at least it only takes overnight and not 24 hours on a GPO. So again, that gets to another part of the ugly bit, which is where you think you've advanced something and you've actually gone backwards because that site is now no longer available, and that then leaves a considerable gap on that central journey. But anyway,
Harold, can I just say, some people think you're nuts for doing all these laps, but what they don't realise is the amount of data and experience and information that you're gathering, which will all go towards informing, the next generation of EV network designs and installations, and ultimately is for the net benefit of the EV community Australia-wide. So you're not just doing this because you're nuts. You're doing it because you're providing a huge service to the EV community in Australia. And it might not be apparent on the face of it, but there's a huge amount of, like I said, data, information, experience that you're gathering in the background to inform the next generation of EV networks.
One thing we're also trying to do is, for example, this is Cooper Pedy. So this screen is basically missing. And it's a good thing this thing's on FreeVEN. No, it's not on FreeVEN, sorry. You've got to use the app because the actual RFID reader sits here and is also missing. And these are the ChargeMate AC outlets. Only one of these was working because you can see it's profoundly smashed. So something, we're going to be working on, the club is certainly going to be working on is, and what I've actually temporarily done is just patched up the hole with cloth tape just to keep the rain out, to keep these things running a bit longer. Same with that. But what we'll be working on is trying to, for example, fit polycarbonate, which is a very hard plastic, to the front of these screens, and also maybe something like that to the front of the Kempower units, and making other sort of recommendations to the charge point operators to try and harden some of this infrastructure. Because unfortunately, when you go to remote communities, that was Cooper Pedy. The other vandalised units are in Halls Creek and Fitzroy Crossing, and they all those communities, towns share similar characteristics of many things that are lit at night get vandalised. If there's a screen, it'll be broken, unfortunately. But as an EV community, we can't afford for something like that to result in us not being able to charge, especially if it's not just the Kempower unit, but it's also the AC units, because then we really are scraping the bottom of the barrel and needing to find a power point somewhere. And again, turning a 20-minute stop into a 20-hour stop. And like I said, the consequences of that happening are quite dire. And they're not positive for the continued uptake of EVs. You know, it means that EV owners then become relegated to be second-class citizens, and that's not a great position to be in.
There's another aspect to this as well. So yes, vandalism will happen, and yes, as you've just pointed out, there are things that can be done to harden the infrastructure, make it more vandal-proof. But the other aspect of it is the turnaround. So when something does go down, it's just not good enough to take weeks for some of these charges or some of these sites to be repaired. It needs to be, you know, within hours, ideally, rather than weeks.
Yeah, indeed. And if we look at the Halls Creek site as an exemplar of what should not be happening, if we look at the PlugShare posts, if we go to view more, this has been offline since late July. So let's call it, today's date is the 25th of September.
2 months.
So for more than 8 weeks, this site has been offline and continues to be offline. And unfortunately, and look, yes, it is badly damaged, and you know, that's unfortunate. That's an externality, but you know, this screen and the internals ought to be repaired promptly, because let's face it, there's a big gap between Fitzroy Crossing and Warman. And actually the Ngumban Cliff Rest area has only just been been commissioned with the assistance of John Edwards, actually, who coincidentally was there while they were commissioning it, so he was able to test it. But 2 months and counting really isn't good enough. It doesn't make for a resilient system, and it doesn't make for a pleasant user experience, especially when you then rely on chargers either side. And you know, there's nothing stopping several chargers being vandalized in one day, and they need to be fixed promptly. And if they can't be fixed promptly, there need to be other means of getting the EV owner on their way, such as perhaps a temporary power box or something, even if it's a slower, smaller DC charger that can get you on your way temporarily, that can be rapidly deployed. You know, if they can rapidly deploy things like speed cameras on those hybrid trailer setups that are battery powered, then you could probably fairly easily have a small power source or a small DC charger that you could plug into power at the site and use that as an auxiliary sort of emergency backup unit, an auxiliary unit. If you can't
Like
repair,
a portable,
like
a portable plug into a 3-phase socket that's already on site.
a little bit like the CTEC charger. In fact, one of the awesome locations I was at, and I think there's an image of it there. This is Wim Creek. So that's actually Tim Devereaux in his Kona, and he was driving in convoy with John Edwards and Jim Thompson. So this is John Edwards' biofuel, and it's got a 60 kilowatt DC charger, and it's a temporary setup at Wim Creek. And I've got to say, I turned up there. It was nighttime. It was actually early at night, but it was already very dark. It was about 7:30 at night, and the Milky Way was so bright. It was a moonless night. It was so bright, and there was nothing better than charging at 60 kilowatts in the middle of nowhere under the Milky Way. And you know, so something like that, I mean, that's fairly rapidly deployable, But in any case, just this box here at the end, which is only really the size of a small
Suit-
suit. It's like in fact, it's like a large carry-on or small suitcase. That plugged into a 30, 40, 50 kilowatt power source. So for example, you could plug it into a 50 amp 3-phase outlet and get 44 kilowatts. That would do the job at some of these vandalized sites. And that
temporary.
Well, I think another big issue is the repercussion. Well, there are no repercussions for this sort of damage, and it's happening everywhere where these communities exist. They don't even get a slap over the wrist, and that's another problem that needs addressing. But no one wants to look at that. It's becoming a real issue.
It is, and you know, Australia's a marvelous place. The change in scenery is fantastic.
It's amazing.
But there are some places where, to be frank, they're not very tourist friendly, to be brutally honest. But that's just part of this country we live in part. So it is just what it is. But again, the WAV network and the NRMA network and the RAA network and the Queensland network and others need to be cognizant of this and need to be able to cope with it in one way or another. I mean, if it means you've got to relocate them, if you've got to put them in the cop shops or somewhere where there's 24/7 coverage or people or something, or you've got to harden them where you take the screens out so you can't break them. It might mean that you've got a less efficient service, like it might not be as convenient because you can't touch the touchscreen. You may be restricted. One of the other photos that I took at Fitzroy Crossing and Halls Creek was the payment terminal, the PayMate, whereby you can pay casually with a tap and go card. That was all smashed to smithereens as well. So in some of these remote sites, you might have to accept less convenience of being able to use RFID cards, or maybe it has to be app only, or to be honest, in some of the sites, maybe it needs to be just free vend. Don't bother with trying to collect $30, $40 here and there when, let's face it, the site would probably cost $500,000 in the first instance. You're not going to recover the costs anyway, because it's for the greater good of having EVs throughout the rest of our community that just don't bother getting the revenue. It's just like you don't have coin acceptors on public toilets. That's just it's just a community service, because to do that is just too expensive and not cost effective. So there are a few things that they need to address.
It's got to make sure, though, that there isn't a local EV owner that uses it as their own private free source of electrons. So,
yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I actually saw that in Melbourne. It was, I forget what it was called, Melbourne North or something. It was near the airport, and it was a RACV site. It was formerly a ChargeFox site, but it's obviously ChargeFox divested themselves of all the physical chargers. And sure enough, there was a Mercedes EQC, a guy there, actually parked there longer than me, although I'm sure I was emptier than he was, and I left basically full. And that's because Mercedes has a deal that you buy an EQC and a few other models, and you get 2 or 3 years of free ChargeFox charging, or free charging on the ChargeFox network. And of course, this person who would have lived in Melbourne, no doubt, human nature being as it is, felt compelled to spend his time getting free juice. And, people do that all day, every day, if they're presented with something for free, because that's what humans are innately programmed to do. So that can also distort, like you say, Pete. In fact, that's why you cannot get a charge at Kings Park, because it's a very desirable place to be, and you'll barely see any Teslas there. You'll almost always see one of the other legacy car brands that have done a deal with, or that ChargeFox have done a deal with, to provide free unlimited charging for a certain period of time.
Do I apply to them? I'm sure they do.
Yes, they do. Yes. And they apply to thankfully they apply to the owner of the car. So it actually gets passed on to the car owner. It's not paid by a third party. So that ought to engender behavior change. But it doesn't stop people charging to 100% and wasting, say, 20 minutes getting from 80% or 85% to 100% purely because they want to get that last bit of juice. And that really does waste a lot of time and inhibits the usefulness of the site.
And it doesn't stop them purposely not charging at home so that they could get to the charger with a low state of charge and suck on free electricity to save 30 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yes. Yep. And if anyone questions why people would do that, just look at why petrol and diesel car owners will queue sometimes a kilometre down the road to save 5 cents or 4 cents per litre. And don't forget, you're basically saving, if you're getting free charging, you are saving at standard tariff, you're saving 30 cents a kilowatt hour. And yeah, humans will waste several hours of their time to save perhaps a few dozen dollars. But it is what it is. Alrighty, with about 20 minutes left in the program, we've got any other topics or comments? Especially since the last time we recorded Ask Us Anything, which was 3 weeks ago, and coincidentally, Pete, thank you for holding the fort. That was awesome, and a few little dicky birds have told me that you did an exemplary job, and many thanks for doing that. It's a thankless job, but a critical one, and you're very good at it, and thank you for it. But yeah, have we got any other questions or comments at these later stage of this program?
Just quickly,
Sorry, who was that? Darren. Yeah, go, Darren.
Yeah, I just seen something for like the reopening of the voting for the locations of superchargers. Is that just for America or that's everywhere?
Just for Europe at this stage.
Okay.
The US and APAC or Australia, those votes haven't reopened yet. So there was a winner. Let me just bring that up. It was over east, of course. And I think it was in New South Wales was the winning location for...
It was in Narrandera.
Narrandera. Thanks, Mark. I'll just bring it up for...
Narrandera's already got an NRMA one there, I think, as well.
Yes. Oh, if I just go to supercharger voting, sorry. Let me just go into charging, supercharger voting. So the voting isn't... Yeah, so if we have a look, if you go to Asia Pacific, there are no locations, so nothing is available to vote for yet, nor in North America. It's only in Europe where they've got voting locations open. But if we look at WA, sorry, let me just go back out of there and go into find. Oh, and by the way, if you look at, stores and galleries, the Osborne Park site is actually here. So it is on their map, 419 Scarborough Beach Road. Okay, so if we just get out of that and we go into superchargers. So obviously the Kings Park pin has returned. Frustratingly, the Greenhead pin is not there, even though we know because the council has confirmed it, that there is a supercharger going into Greenhead. It's not there. We've got our Southern Cross site, which it says in development, and that was Q1 2023 supercharger voting winner. And then Narandra, which is right here, that is the Q3 2024 voting winner. So that's the latest winner. And voting has not yet opened for Australia. So hopefully it'll open in the next couple of weeks or so. And also hopefully, I think from memory, last quarter there was Cannington, I think it was. Cannington was a proposed site, which is all fair enough to vote for, but I mean, that's an urban site. It's not as important for us as Perth residents to have than, say, something like Greenhead and other locations in the regions, which would be useful to us. But yeah, thanks, Darren. Pete, were you going to say something? Actually, you might have just stepped out. Has anyone else got any questions or comments?
Yeah, Harold, it's Mark. Just
Yes,
going back to the your trip and the discussion regarding the services along those. Have you been approached by any of the government people or lobby groups or anything like that in terms of your experiences as you've gone around? You've done so many laps. You must be an absolute font of knowledge as to what is required. Has anyone actually approached you about it?
No.
That is so scary. And very sad to hear, because I mean, there's an absolute mass of information, and I'm just so shocked that nobody has actually reached out and actually said, okay, what do we need to do to make it better?
And I could also point out, Harold's actually a qualified and a practicing electronics engineer. So he does actually have not just the knowledge and experience of EV chargers, but he understands the electronics behind it. So yeah, the fact that no one's reached out, and in fact, when TOCWA, the Tesla Owners Club of WA, have reached out to some other government organisations, they let's just say they haven't really been responsive to. And you know, TOCWA doesn't have an agenda. We're a not-for-profit organisation. Our only agenda is to improve the network for all EV users. So,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear that, to be honest. I really am.
Shocking.
But we're certainly motivated. TOCWA is certainly motivated to try and lobby for change. You know, like I said, one great thing about this trip, it's funny, it was actually, in some respects, it was actually the hardest trip I've done, because just when you're dealing with this big anchor behind you, you know, gaps of, you know, 270 kilometers sounds almost insurmountable when you're averaging, you know, 300 and something watt hours per kilometer. So it becomes quite tough, and wind makes a huge difference. So in some respects, and also, you know, it's a bit disheartening when you get to a fast DC charger location and everything's working swimmingly. You sort of, I mean, one of the great things in the caravan, especially in the morning when it's nice and cool, is to plug into a fast DC charger site and then just go into the back, lay on the nice double bed and just have a snooze. And it's like, and you're just sort of like listening to sort of nothing really. It's really good. But then you hear a click and you look outside and everything's black. And it's like, hang on a minute, there were like all these bright lights out there before, because that was the lights of the charging station, and everything's black. And it's like you get this sinking feeling of, oh no, how much is in my car? Oh, I've got 70%. Well, I need to make another 200 and something Ks. I need to be full. So then you do that thing of, well, thankfully I've got 30 kilowatt hours in my caravan. I've got to reconfigure the charger to go off grid, plug in, and get going, and it just
Yeah.
changes the rest of your day. So yeah, this was in some respects the hardest trip I've done, even in some parts harder than the original Model X one, because you're towing an anchor basically. But anyway, look, the good thing is in a few years' time, it's, like I said, in 2018, not even 10 people had done the lap. Last week, there were and are 10 different cars doing it all at once. I want for next year for there to be 50 different cars doing it all at once. And then in a couple of years' time, I want so many people doing this routinely that, like I said, no one takes notice of which number of what order sequence you are on an aeroplane. How many billions, like now billions of people have flown in airplanes, and it's just routine. Same as the grey nomads. I mean, there are tens of thousands of them. In peak season, you go to every river bank, like every bridge where you've got parking areas is full of grey nomads. Every parking bay, outback, whatever, caravan park is chockers. You turn over any rock and you'll see a grey nomad there. We want all those grey nomads to have EVs, which they eventually will have, in the next decade. So we want these trips to be boring, uneventful.
Yeah.
You don't even put it on PlugShare because you don't need to. People don't have PlugShare for petrol stations because they're just there and they work.
Oh, well, I suppose you can go back and think about where we were in the 1980s, and we had roster stations on Sundays.
We did. I know, I do remember that very well. And the problem is, when I was a student then, you had no money, you had no petrol, and you had to go, oh man, I'm in whatever, West Perth, and I've got to get to Kalamunda and go up the hill to go to a roster station. How third world that is.
I mean, essentially, that's where we're at the moment, essentially. And if you
we're transitioning.
Comparison. We're in transition.
We're in transition, and unfortunately, the transition doesn't always run smoothly. And I mean, look, I was at the Queensland Electric Highway, and the old tritiums, the old RTs. I came across two of them that were broken. Actually, there were three of them, and one of them, I don't think I've got enough time to actually bring it up on X, but I actually came across a gentleman going towards Rockhampton, and I was at Marlborough, and I was going north towards Mackay, and he was going south towards Rockhampton, and he had short charged at Carmela because he figured that Marlborough was working, but unfortunately it wasn't. So then I actually ended up charging him up from the caravan, pulling shore power from the Schneider 22 kilowatt AC unit. And had I not been there, he was contemplating topping up a little bit. He had 80 Ks left on his battery, and he had 120 Ks to go, I think, to Rockhampton, something like that. He was contemplating plugging into a 10 amp outlet and charging until midnight. And he had his brother with him, taking him to going to Rockhampton for a basketball tournament or something the next day. So again, that would have wrecked his day if he hadn't literally bumped into me at random, who happened to be there and was able to give him 30 kilowatts of power. And, in 20 minutes, he was on his way, which was just fortunate. Fortunate for him. It was unfortunate for me, or both of us, that site wasn't reliable. And unfortunately, the old tritium units, the element tritium has a half-life of 12.3 years. The product tritium has a half-life of probably about 12.3 months. And it's all about reliability.
Yeah. I just think it's just astounding that nobody's actually reached out to use that latent knowledge that you've got.
Absolutely.
No.
But
And I'll leave the comment at that. But yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
shaking my head. I know I haven't got the camera on, but you'd see me shaking my head.
But trust me, we're certainly making every effort to get that knowledge out there and lobby for change. And whatever
fine.
we can do as a club, we certainly will with all our might and all our resources.
Yeah.
And we'll try and get that change and disseminate that knowledge.
No, that's brilliant.
Alrighty, well, we've probably got about 6 or 7 minutes to go. Sorry, Pete, you were going to say something, I think, before.
Just to summarize what, basically the result of your lap. So basically what we need is reliable chargers. So either they're not going to break down, they're not going to be easily vandalized. If they are vandalized, they will be repaired in a timely manner. So we need reliable chargers that are available. So it's not enough to have one charger at a site, especially when there's, and even on a remote site, especially when there's 10 people going around Australia at any one time. So they need to be available, they need to be reliable, and they need to be no more than about 100 kilometres apart. Would that be a fair summary?
Yeah, 100 k's apart. That's great for caravans. It's also great for resilience. So if you're in a standard EV where you've got 300 plus kilometers of range, look, if you make a mistake or you inadvertently unplug too soon or whatever, if you get to a place where it's congested, you can go to the next one. It's only 100 kilometers down the road. If one side is vandalized, you've got two choices. If you're in a car, if you're in a caravan, you've got one alternate choice, which is great. It provides, like I said, more resilience to localized failures. So you can have a power failure at a town or at a single location or some other issue. You get more convenience because the shorter you can do charging sessions at the lower end of your battery, once you're more experienced as an EV user, the much quicker it is. So if you turn up to a place fairly low state of charge, you can get 100 kilometers in a standard car in 10 minutes. I mean, that's pretty good. So you can sort of break up your journey into little steps. Like I said, you've got more capacity, more resilience, redundancy, and a better overall experience. And
one thing I forgot, we should mention that obviously those sites need to be configured so that they're in a drive-through or a pull-through configuration, so that you don't have to be unhitching a caravan, so you can just pull through, just like you can at a petrol station. You don't have to unhitch at a petrol station. Why should you have to unhitch at a EV charger?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly.
Approximately how many unhitches did you have to do, Harold?
I know I did at least.
I know you got away with a lot just by parking.
Yeah. And I did some, and look, to be clear, while it looked like I was being a bit of a EV hole blocking a lot of charges, I was obviously always there. So it goes without saying that if anyone turned up, I would move. And I did leave early at one site. And it was funny, it was actually Port Augusta. And I was a little bit semi-frustrated because it was a legacy car maker's car that was presumably getting free ChargeFox charging at Port Augusta. But anyway, that's okay. These things happen. And I actually just unplugged and moved to the alternate site. But I unhitched 2 times because I had to. And I think a 3rd time I unhitched. Other times I had to do a bit of Tetris. Oh God, yeah. And luckily I don't suck at reversing, so I was able to do that. But yeah, there weren't an awful lot of sites that were intrinsically trailer friendly. There are ones that you could just use a trailer. So some of the WEV network sites, like in Geraldton, I just sort of wove between the bollard and the 2 Kempowers and managed to sort of squeeze through. But obviously if that was fully occupied, I'd have to have unhitched. Same as many of the supercharger sites, not all of them were trailer friendly, but because they were effectively empty, I could just sprawl across, a whole lot of stalls, but obviously stayed with the car to make sure that I wasn't blocking anyone who might have turned up. But and you're right,
That's
Pete,
not too bad considering.
yeah, that's right. And because I'm lazy, I actually got one of those DO35 hitches, which has got that pin and the quick release. And the great thing of that is when you wind the jockey wheel up, it just unhitches super easily. It doesn't bind or anything like that. Although I must admit my jockey wheel's crap because it's one of those ones where you've got to sort of like attach it. You can't just do you can't just like pull a mechanism and do a 90-degree sort of flip to stow it. I had to actually remove it and add it every time I wanted to hitch and unhitch. But anyway, it's just one of those things. Alrighty, we're getting towards the end of the program. So if you've got any last minute quick question, certainly willing to answer it now, or we might have to go to an outro. So any last drinks for anyone?
Harold, I was at the Albany Car Show on Sunday and had a few negative comments, but I think I passed on some good information. And there's an MLA called Rebecca Stevens,
Yes.
who is quite interested to find out. So I asked her to contact you and the group if she needs any information.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Norm. Always happy to talk to anyone that's got any passing interest in EVs. And yes, I have seen Rebecca down in Albany for some of the openings of the WAEV network sites. So yep, always happy to talk to anyone for any reason. Absolutely. But yeah, thanks for that. And trust you had
Rebecca
fun.
Stevens has Harold's number. She's got my number. She's got Rob's number. So yeah, and she's met all three of us. So yeah, she knows who to reach out to.
Excellent.
Right.
Alrighty. Any last minute ones, like a last minute question? Max, you've just joined us. You got any questions for us? No, perhaps not. That's okay. Totally cool. All right, Pete, how would you round out an awesome show like this as if we didn't know?
Always stay safe, stay sustainable. Thank you, Harold, for your continual service to the EV community in Australia. And stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve.
And the best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join TOCWA, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. After a long hiatus, and once again, thank you, Pete, for filling in. I really look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.